Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this alternative football podcast. This is my attempt number 2. Last night, my recording got interrupted by our maintenance man because our AC went out. Luckily, our AC is working tonight, and I don't have to stop in the middle of this unless something else goes crazy because I don't really know how to edit this yet. I'll get to that later, but anyways, thank you for joining me. Let's talk about everything going on in alternative football right now. So let's first talk about what's going on with the AAF. Well, I guess nothing's going on with the AAF other than they're getting sued. We'll see if any players actually get any of these players that are actually suing the alliance, if they're actually going to get any money. I don't think Tom Dundon, since obviously the league itself didn't have any money, I don't think Tom Dundon's going to pay for any of it. So I don't know what the players are hoping to get out of it. On the positive note, some alliance players are getting signed to NFL teams. You got Luis Perez going to the Eagles. You got Brendan Silvers going to the Jets. You have a lot of other players. It's just the quarterbacks always get the most press. So there's quite a few. I can't even keep track of how many are actually going. And while that is a good sign that having a spring football league did actually allow them to get back onto NFL team rosters, while that, yes, is a good thing, let's be honest, this is the preseason before the draft. As far as we know, they might get cut after training camp and the preseason. So while it's great that they're getting another shot on NFL rosters, until they actually make it into a roster during regular season, it doesn't really prove that they actually were developed to the point that they wanted to be. So while I'm hopeful that some of these guys do wind up making it into the league and actually staying for the regular season, let's not get so excited about them being signed right now. It doesn't really mean anything at this point. So that's how I feel about the Alliance players getting signed. In other news, the Spring League is being played right now currently in the Austin, Texas area. And the XFL has partnered with them to test out some of their rules that they plan to use next season. One rule, the punt halo, the 5-yard halo for the punt returns, they are getting that from the CFL. The CFL has used that for many years, and it works great in the CFL, and I think it'll work great in the XFL too. Maybe someday they'll bring it around in the NFL. It also started showing off their new kickoff formation, where the two teams line up 5 yards away from each other. It looked like it was on the 35 and the 40, or maybe the 25 and the 30, something like that, to lower the concussion risk on kickoffs. Since one thing, I didn't completely miss kickoffs in the Alliance this year, I do think that kickoffs, while it's a low percentage play, that makes it more exciting when it does happen. Especially with the IFL this week, you had, what was his name? What was his name? I forgot his name. Markel Wade. Markel Wade, thank you. Markel Wade had 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown, and they were very exciting. Kickoff returns are a great way for some of these skill players to show off their athleticism, which is the whole point of watching sports, is to be impressed by someone's ability. And taking kickoffs out of it kind of removes that one facet of the game. So I personally would like to have kick returns stay in, kickoffs stay in. Now, I personally think they should do more to actually advantage the offense or the receiving team. So these players that are showing what they can do will actually get more of an advantage, because the XFL, well, football nowadays is more about offense. That's what people want to see. So why can't we see more offense on the special team side? So, well, I think they should probably line up exactly the way the NFL does on the 35-yard line, and be 5 yard, and then the receiving team's players, the remaining 10 besides the kick returner, line up on the 40 on the opposite side of the 50. I wish, and then they give the that would give a huge buffer for the kick returner to get as many yards as they can. So then essentially they get to show off their speed, their runaway speed, which I believe would make them possibly be, as you can probably hear my cat meowing in the background. Hey, come here. You're an idiot. You got to join the podcast. No? Okay. That's Apollo. I'm sure if you've listened to this or watched it, you've heard him being mentioned. So anyway, I think that being able to show off a kick returner speed would help them get into the NFL. Also, I just think it gives an opportunity for more action in the game, which is always a good thing. And here's Apollo making his entrance. So anyways, that is, but I'm glad that they're bringing that in at some point, in some form. Another rule that they announced that they are going to be bringing back from the original XFL is the multi-level extra point. So it's always a play from scrimmage, but from the 2, it's a 1-point conversion. From the 5, it's a 2-point conversion, and from the 10, it's a 3-point conversion. I love this. In the previous XFL, it was a very exciting, very dynamic, very new style of strategy for the games, and I really enjoyed it when I watched the original XFL when I was younger. And I'm very glad that they're bringing that they've decided to bring that back. They also announced that they're going to be doing a tap rule. Is that what they called it? Yeah, a tap rule, where the refs were essentially going to be able to go and tap a player and say, okay, set out the next play as a deterrence without having to actually make a throw a flag or do an actual announcement for a penalty, and not necessarily penalize the whole team. Essentially just put a player in timeout, similar to I guess like a power play in hockey, but instead of being short a player for one play, they just have to put in a sub. They're required to put in a sub for him. It's one of their attempts to speed up the game. It's an interesting idea. We'll see how it plays out in the XFL. I haven't been able to watch any of the spring football league other than like quick highlights, because for some reason they didn't have any of the games on demand, and I haven't been able to find streams of them. If anyone knows where I could find an on demand so I can see how some of these plays work, somehow some of these rules work their way out, I would be very interested. Another thing that the XFL has said that they're going to do is a sudden death overtime, but there's going to be 44 players on the field. So what I'm thinking is offense and defense for each team will be on opposite sides of each field, so on opposite end zones, so you don't have to like shuffle in and out. So the overtime could literally be over in 4 minutes, essentially one play, extra point, and then, or I'm not 100% sure how their overtime would work. So we'll see. Maybe they'll show off more about how they're going to do that. Another thing that happened this week, in moving on to indoor football, the Arena Football League and released their uniforms with their new uniform supplier for next season, or this season, I should say. And most of the uniforms look good. And if you have seen them, I bet you can probably just go on Arena Fan's website, arenafan.com, and they have photos from the latest, from the uniform release, and you can probably see which one I think is not good. The Philadelphia Soul is not good. I am very surprised that they went from having some of the best uniforms in football to having some of the, to by far the worst. Their jerseys now look like the old Zubaz pants. If you remember those from the early days in the Arena Football League, instead of having Zubaz pants, you now have Zubaz jerseys. They're quite terrible. I'm very sad that they even bothered doing it like this. It baffles the mind to me that all the other jerseys can look quite nice and well proportioned and have good style to them, and then the Philadelphia Soul are so utterly terrible. I guess they didn't want to have them in their gray again, but I don't see why they couldn't have them in their light blue like their helmets. But I guess they were worried about too many blue because the Valor's in blue, the Brigade's in blue, the Destroyers are in blue. So why didn't they go with the gray? I don't know. I'm not sure what the reasoning was behind it, but all the other teams have fantastic uniforms, and the Soul look ridiculous. So that's how I feel about those uniforms. Moving on to the actual games that are actually being played right now. IFL had their Week 7. In the first game, the Quad City Steamwheelers went into Green Bay and lost to the Green Bay Blizzard by another very close game. Footman looked fantastic. He went 20 for 28 for 249 yards, 6 touchdowns, and then 21 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So he combined for 8 touchdowns. So he's doing very well this year. He's pretty much the reason why the Blizzard are at 4-2 right now and having the best season in a long time. Now, this is the first time I've ever watched IFL football, but from my research, this is by far the best season they've had ever. And it looks like attendance is starting to pick up. The attendance at this previous game, watching this game between Quad City and Blizzard, it seemed like the crowd was really into it and really excited, which Green Bay is a football town, so that is not surprising. I'm glad that they're starting to show and be more involved in other teams besides the Packers, and they're embracing the Blizzard. The Blizzard have been around for a while. They were in the AF2 along with Quad City, so it's just good to see these two teams still battling it out after all these years. And it was a fantastic game, very entertaining. In the second game, the Sioux City Storm went into Bismarck and beat the Bucks 64-31. Not a whole lot to say about this game. Bismarck did put in Gibbs at quarterback for a little bit. If I was Bismarck, I would just stick with Gibbs for the majority of the season because he really seemed to be a little bit better and more composed in the pocket. He's clearly adjusting to the indoor game as opposed to the outdoor game, but I think he has more upside. And when you're already at 0-5, you might as well give him a shot. Now, if you're really far behind, I think they should start Gibbs, and then if he starts screwing up some more, then put in Nesbitt. But yeah, it was not a very good looking game. In the next game, the San Diego Strike Force went into Arizona to get their ass handed to them by the Arizona Rattlers, 58-91. Not much to say about this game, although it's kind of impressive that the Strike Force got over 50 points. So that's good. The only problem is Arizona started their backups for almost the entire game and still scored a record 91 points. This is the highest number of points that the Rattlers have ever scored. Their previous record was 86 against the Utah Blaze back in the original AFL. Nearly over 100. I didn't look up exactly what the highest scoring game ever was. I do believe that the highest scoring game ever, both teams actually combined for over 100. I believe this was just a couple years ago. I believe it was in the AFL with the Soul and I can't remember. I don't remember exactly. I'll look that up. If you know what it was, just send me an email or a comment down below if you remember what game where both teams scored over 100 points. I believe it might have been No, it wasn't Rattlers. It might have been like San Jose and Philadelphia, like quite a few years ago. My mind's drawing a blank, but in the next game, the other one that I mentioned, the Quad City River Kings went into Iowa and lost to the Barnstormers 48-59. One thing I mentioned was Markel Wade with his two touchdowns on kick returns. Were very exciting, and the only thing that makes this game actually look closer than it actually was those two kickoff returns for touchdowns. Because if you take those 14 points off the board, well, actually, I don't even remember if they made the extra points, but if you take those at least 12 points off the board, it makes it look a lot farther apart in terms of ability. Polendek, I think that I was saying his name right. He doesn't look bad at quarterback. I'm not sure what's going on with the Quad City, Cedar Rapids River Kings offense, but they're clearly not really up to the task. They're now currently 1-5, so they're pretty much out of it. They look better than what the record is saying, because at least most of their games have been fairly close. So, but they somehow just don't figure out a way to win. But really, the way they play, they don't look as bad as their record would indicate. So hopefully they start turning around. But we'll see. In the next game, this one was very fun and interesting to watch. The Tucson Sugar Skulls went into Nebraska and lost to the Danger 47-53. Tommy Armstrong looked fantastic in this game. He looked I was getting flashbacks to his Cornhusker days. He went 14-25 for 196 yards, 4 touchdowns with 1 interception. He also ran 17 times for 84 yards and 1 touchdown. So the Danger, they're looking better. I wish they would start getting more fans in their arena. Their arena does look like a fun arena to play in, and I do like their uniforms, honestly. I'm surprised that they're the only... Well, I'm not sure. I'm a little confused why they choose to change uniforms, go on the whole Oregon Ducks thing, because I'm sure that there's a cost to that might not be cost effective at this level of football. But hey, their uniforms do look pretty good, honestly. So, hey, more power to them. This is a disappointing loss for Tucson on their side, because they, at the beginning of the year, they came out looking very strong, and the Danger looked to be very weak. But the Danger, ever since, especially ever since getting Tommy Armstrong, they're looking a lot better. And a lot of that is because of Tommy. But Tucson, there's a lot of hope for that franchise, because being in the state of Arizona, there's kind of a connection to the Rattlers. There might be a lot of former Rattlers fans that just don't want to travel to Rattlers games that can now be fans of the Sugar Skulls. And so this is a disappointing loss to lose to a team that hasn't been playing quite as well. Now, beginning of the year, still, well, not the beginning anymore. We're in week 7, but still early in the year, quite a few games left to go. We'll see if the Sugar Skulls can turn it around. So with that, let's talk about next week's games. In the IFL, the Danger go in to play against the Blizzard in Green Bay. That is going to be very interesting. You got a team of 3-3 and 4-2, so we'll have to find out. It should be a close game between two teams that are getting better and consistently getting better, and we'll have to see which one schemes for the team that they're playing against more, and which one gets the upper hand to get closer to the playoff rush. The next game, Iowa goes to Bismarck to play the Bucks. This is going to be in pure and utter beatdown. No questions about it. The next game is going to be a rematch between the Rattlers and the Sugar Skulls. This time, the Rattlers are going into Tucson to play the Sugar Skulls. This will be interesting because I wonder how many people will show up to a Sugar Skulls game in Tucson wearing Rattlers gear, because I'm sure there's quite a few Rattlers fans in the Tucson area, since they probably watched Rattlers games growing up. So that'll be quite interesting. And also how many fans will be driving down to watch the game from the visiting team. So hope maybe Tucson can do something if they really want to start impressing more people around. They would have to really win this game, especially in their home arena. Now, this week we have a second league kicking off, and this league does do kickoffs. The National Arena League is kicking off, which I am very excited for, because that means it's the return of the Predators. Orlando Predators are back, and they're back in the Amway Arena. So that is fantastic. In the first game of the week, the New York Streets, the other new team in the league, is going into Jacksonville to play the Jacksonville Sharks. Can't really pick it. I don't really know very much about this league right now. I know some of the things about I watched some of the games from last year, and how I love how on kickoffs you can kick through the field goal for 2 points, and that is a fantastic. I love it. I like that rule. It makes it very exciting. But in terms of players, I don't really know any of the players or anything, so I can't really give you much picks based off that. But I would think the traveling expansion team, is probably going to lose to the Sharks, who have been around for quite a while now. So that's my pick on that one. The Carolina Cobras go into Massachusetts to play the Pirates. Cobras won the championship last year. I think they'll probably win this game. This might be the closest game of the week. The Lions are going into Orlando to play the Predators. maybe the Lions have been around a few years, and this is the expansion Predators. So it's not like the Predators of old. So we'll have to see. I can't really pick that game. I'm very excited. I hope this year of National Arena League football goes well. I'm really hoping that there's a possibility of some point bringing the Tampa Bay Storm back with the National Arena League, or possibly now that I don't have my Atlanta Legends anymore, I'm hoping the National Arena League brings back the Georgia Force. I know that's slim to none possibility, but the league is based in Atlanta, so I hope they would consider it possibly. But Atlanta is also a very tough sports market, but I think there's enough people for that level of football that might want to watch indoor football. If they could bring back, honestly, if they would just get rid of the Pirates in the streets, get rid of the whole Northern Division, and just concentrate on the Southeast, I think they could have a very cool and fun Southeastern League. Just give the IFL the West Coast and Midwest, Arena Football League the Northeast, and the National Arena League the South. Just Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Carolina, like Tennessee, Memphis, maybe Mississippi. I don't think there's been an indoor league in Mississippi. That whole area, that would be a very fun, good way to build up rivalries. I don't know if that's their idea. It looks like they want to expand into more markets and also into the Northeast. I think that might be more of a push to possibly join back in with the Arena League at some point, but who knows? But anyway, guys, thank you for listening or watching on YouTube. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy all 7 of the football games that we have this weekend. Watch them all on YouTube, just like you're watching this podcast. And enjoy your week, and we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.